Here goes. New discovery of carved Madoc stone. Welsh Prince Madoc ap Murig, brother of King Arthur II, and mysterious Ing, or NG, rune in America by J.J. Ainsworth, June 17, 2016. Ever heard of Prince Madoc of Wales? There are many stories of him and his wonderful adventures. One story in particular is of interest to me. It tells of Prince Madoc making his way to America around 562 to 570 AD, give or take. Apparently, there was a disaster involving a comet that destroyed much of Prince Madoc's kingdom. He and his Welsh people had to leave their homes in order to find safety because their homeland was desolated. The land was useless for growing crops, and many, many people died. However, there was hope. The Welsh, also known as Cymry people, had strong leaders to guide them. Not only did they have Prince Madoc, but they had his brother, King Arthur II, as well. Yes, they were relations of the legendary King Arthur. They gathered what was left of their people and traveled with them by sea until they reached America. Story goes that they landed in the state of Alabama. The history of two King Arthurs was lost at some point. There was, in fact, definitely more than one King Arthur, and this confused historians. Sadly, this sort of situation occurs quite frequently. The unknowing information combined the history of these two Welsh kings, pushing both into myth, as one Arthur would have to have been at least 250 years old to accomplish all that was done by both. History records the travels of Prince Madoc and King Arthur II in the 1100 AD time period. And as I stated before, this is incorrect for the heroes of our story. Ours is set in the 6th century. In 1953, the Daughters of the American Revolution erected a plaque at Fort Morgan on the shores of Mobile Bay, Alabama, reading, "In memory of Prince Madoc, a Welsh explorer who landed on the shores of Mobile Bay in 1170 and left behind with the Indians the Welsh language." Again, unfortunately, the dating here is off. Also, the state of Georgia has their own story of Prince Madoc. A plaque at Fort Mountain State Park in Georgia records a 19th century interpretation of the ancient stone wall that gives it site its name. The plaque repeats Tennessee Governor John Sevier's statement that the Cherokees believed that a people called Welsh had built a fort on the mountain long ago to repel Indian attacks. Many people believe that some of the Welsh survived in America and eventually became known as the Mandan Indian tribe. There are Native American stories that describe fair-skinned people with red hair. Could they be talking about these Welsh settlers? In all, at least 13 real tribes, 5 unidentified tribes, and 3 unnamed tribes have been suggested as Welsh Indians. Eventually, the legend did settle on identifying the Welsh Indians with these Mandan people, who were said to differ from their neighbors in culture, language, and appearance. The painter and lawyer George Catlin suggested the Mandans were descendants of Madoc and his seafaring companions. He lived with the Mandan tribe for several months. He said they were very different than all other tribes he had come across. He described the women as being very beautiful with European features. He also proclaimed that at least 1/6 of the tribe were almost white, having pale skin and very light blue eyes. They also knew many similar biblical accounts, such as claiming they were descended from a white man who arrived to their land in a big canoe after a great flood destroyed everything on the face of the earth. They also spoke using many Welsh words. The seemingly Welsh influence on the Mandan's language was noted by several others as well. George Catlin also found the round bull boats the Mandans made were extremely similar to the Welsh coracles. George Catlin also found that the Mandans built fortifications in stone with a much higher technicality than other tribes. Some of the ruins of these fortifications can still be seen at Fort Mountain, Georgia, including a 855-foot long stone enclosure. Shawnee runestone bearing an ancient runic script that says Madoc. The reddish 14-inch by 11-inch oval stone bearing letters that have been translated to the word Madoc or Madoc, same meaning, was found by Jim Estep of Shawnee, his brother-in-law Mikal Lindsay, and another boy in August 1969 at Shawnee, Oklahoma. Since I heard there were a few artifacts that may be related to this famous Prince Madoc, my interest was piqued, so I went on the hunt to find them, and I did in a little town called Poteau, Oklahoma. While visiting the Leflore County Historical Society in Poteau, the archivist on duty removed the Shawnee runestone from its glass case and allowed me to look at the object up close. What I saw during the examination shocked me. I realized something very significant had been overlooked by the many professionals and scholars that came to study the stone before me. I pointed this out to the very kind archivist, and he was very surprised as well. We both closely inspected the stone, and he happily agreed with my findings. A rendition of the writing on the stone that is accepted as accurate is shown in the image here. But in fact, this is inaccurate. The fourth symbol on the stone is known as the Othila symbol, or O, in many of the ancient runic scripts. For example, the Elder Futhark, Anglo-Saxon, and many others have almost identical meanings for the Othila symbol. Sometimes the O symbol is portrayed without the stems, as shown below. This is particularly true in the Culbrin runic alphabet, most notably associated with the Welsh people. What I discovered is that this Othila symbol is no ordinary runic character. It, in fact, has two short stems at the top. See the highlighted runes here. They're showing the correct portrayal with two short stems on the top of the Othila. These extra two short stems at the top of the Othila character allows this rune to now be interpreted as the ing or ng rune, the ing rune. As I studied this new version of the runestone, it dawned on me that sometimes runes contain a cryptic or ciphers. A cipher is a secret, coded, or hidden way of writing. So I began to puzzle over this new thought and contemplated what I would do if I wanted to hide something in my writing. I picked up the stone, noticing its heavy weight. I began feeling it, running my fingers over its hard surface. I had never carved anything into stone before, but realized that if I needed to, I would try to do it in a way that would use the least amount of effort. I pondered this for a while, turning the stone this way and that to see if anything jumped out at me that made sense. If there was a cipher on this stone, then it was done in a very unusual way. In the past, I had taken particular interest in the runic writing systems, as they fascinated me, and I studied them often to the point I could easily read many of the scripts I happened upon. I'm glad I did. My past experience with the runic writing systems made me think that perhaps this wasn't a cipher, but something a little less mysterious. Amazing nonetheless. It dawned on me that the vowels O and A have the same sound in many words, and so do the letters C and K. The K sound. That simple realization made the decipherment much easier. When reading the runes from left to right, it clearly can be deciphered as saying Madoc, M-A-D-O-C. So I then tried reading it in the reverse. It says Codum, K or C for the beginning, O-D-O-M, which makes no sense. But wait, the new addition of the two short stems changes things up quite a bit. Because the top two stems were shorter on the Othilla ing symbol, I decided that perhaps the author wanted us to read it as an Othilla from left to right. This, as we know, reads Madoc. Now, if we go in reverse, reading from right to left, and putting the ng or ing rune into action with its stems, we end up with something amazing. It reads K-N-G-D-O-M, or we would recognize this today as kingdom. The stone reads Madoc's kingdom, an amazing discovery and quite shocking. This is not where the story ends. Believe me, there is a lot more to come that will be very surprising to many of you, and includes the mystery grave in the image you see here. It's located along the mighty Arkansas River. Now, I want to add a bit of information, because this mystery grave carved on it has a rune, a symbol, which can mean several things, and in particular we would possibly recognize it more familiar as being a Masonic square and compass, or the Eye of Providence. But this mystery grave, where it is at, it was the first grave here at this cemetery, and then all the other graves were put there later. So it is still a modern cemetery today, located right next to the very large Arkansas River, which is deep enough for some really big boats, even perhaps Viking boats. But the symbol that you see carved on this mystery grave is a flipped ing symbol, and it is also the God symbol, which this is so fascinating. But that's all for now, and thank you guys for listening. And I host tours, I write articles, and if you have questions about ancient symbols, please leave them in the comments, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. And if you'd like to join me on a tour later this year, I have several happening. For example, in Greece, there's an amazing tour set up that really is not one to be missed. And then, of course, I'm doing a Egypt tour, and next year is pretty full as well. And I'm going to connect the little card with information on it. So if anything, takes your interest, feel free to contact me. I'm on YouTube, of course, and I have a Facebook under JJ Ainsworth, and also I have a Patreon. If you'd like to support my research in that way, that would be really awesome. So thank you guys very much for listening, and have a safe and healthy rest of the year. Bye, guys.